for Army Special Forces, commonly called Green Berets, their qualification course is called the Q course, and it has its own particular set of challenges. BUDS, or Basic Underwater Demolition SEAL Training, which is our selection course, is generally considered the hardest military training in the world. And Hell Week, which is 1 week of that training, is generally considered the hardest week of the hardest military training in the world.
I see. Okay. So you've mentioned this in the past, and you just referenced it now as far as... Let's go into your underwater demolition.
Yes.
Okay. What is...
It's a really useful skill in the civilian world, let me tell you.
Well, I'm imagining, like, I instantly am thinking of, dolphins, and with some kind of tracking device, and you're under a boat, and there's shit blowing up. Like, give me an example of, like, when you use this type of expertise and talent. Like, no, I'm serious. Like, can you tell me
Your
references
example? Are so Austin Powers. Give me
They
some
are.
sharks.
That's my...
some freaking laser beams.
That's my point, is that I'm a fairly educated person, and I know you, and I know other people in the service, but even I am ignorant to all of this.
I mean, I did this piece, so within the special operations community, we actually do use dolphins for special operations, and
that's
did
why I
this
said
piece
dolphins, yes.
for CNN. Yeah,
See, I know some things.
You're like, no, definitely a CNN.
Sharks with
not
lasers.
Not an Austin Powers
Sharks
reference.
with lasers.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually a whole fascinating history of the use of animals in warfare. How do I break it down? Underwater demolition, the roots, the forefathers of the SEAL teams, and in the SEAL community, we always say that we stand on the shoulders of giants, because our reputation was very much earned by the NCDUs, which were the Naval Combat Demolition Units in World War II, which eventually evolved into the underwater demolition teams, which eventually evolved into the SEAL teams in Vietnam. And that's where SEALs kind of gained their storied reputation. It really comes from these underwater demolition routes. So imagine invasion of Normandy in 1944. The Axis forces were trying to deny entrance to the Allied forces, and they knew that some kind of amphibious assault invasion was coming. They didn't know where, so they spent a lot of time like mining and putting these obstacles in the water to prevent, thousands of American servicemen from being deployed onto the beaches of Normandy, right? The story that many people don't know, and the story of the Naval Combat Demolition Units, which are the forefathers of the SEAL teams, is that 3 days before those invasions, you had these early stage frogmen, pre-wetsuits, in the North Atlantic,
Jeez.
right, in 50-degree water, sometimes wearing wool sweaters to keep themselves warm in the water. They're actually affectionately referred to as the Naked Warriors, because they had those like sort of tan UDTs.
Yeah.
So these guys are swimming basically with a set of fins, a knife, and these haversacks, which are explosive charges, and they're planting them on all of these obstacles like Jap scullies and things like that are in underwater, in order to clear lanes for the invasion of Normandy. So that's kind of an example, a historical example of where you would use underwater demolition. You would blow up mines and obstacles that would allow access to certain beaches.
Okay.
And that's really, that's where it all started. That's where it all began. And then, fast forward a couple decades, President Kennedy decides he needs a flexible response doctrine. And, in 1962, he commissions the first SEAL teams.